Hi, everybody. It's Mark Rushton of markrushton.com. You are listening to Ambient Rushton podcast number 178 for April of 2021. And it's been a few weeks since the last podcast here, so I've been a little busy, but I'm gonna crank it out today. Today is Saturday, April 24th, 2021. So it's going to be a one-taker here as far as the podcast is concerned. Who am I? I'm Mark Rushton. I release ambient music, beat-driven electronica, field recordings, nature sounds, almost you name it. And I release a lot of stuff under my name and a lot of different names. And so the podcast is currently a way for me to sort of promote that sort of stuff, talk about my work, and perhaps explain why I release under so many different names in this modern era. Maybe I talk a little bit about that, talk a little bit behind the music, talk about what created the music. So that's kind of where I'm going. My website is markrushton.com, but as everything that you're going to hear in this podcast is part of the Ambient Rushton podcast rotating playlist, which is a public playlist out on Spotify. There will be a link in the description. And but this changes over time. The last podcast, I think I had it marketed as a top 10 or the most recent 10, but I released so much stuff, or I want to feature things, that I decided to expand it out a little bit. And so it's, and of course I have no followers. What is this? Doesn't anybody, no, does anybody, we'll just listen to the podcast. We don't have to listen to the playlist. Well, whatever works for you, right? So that first track there was Industrial Terminal by Aleodeology, and a little bit of a shorter track, because normally the Aleodeology tracks tend to be lengthy, or at least initially they were lengthy. Now I've got a few shorties in there. And the thing about Aleodeology, and you can Google the term, I'm not going to explain what it is, but this was sort of, I guess, a little bit more experimental electronic music that I was creating at the time. And, at the things that are a little bit longer, elongated, you take essentially the philosophy behind the music is you take an idea and kind of run with it until it becomes, for me, it becomes a little bit too much or whatever. And then you make that edit or whatever. So you could have a 15-minute song, you could have a 7-minute track, but it's not like it's melodious or anything like that. It's not like, it kind of is what it is for its duration, which is a little hard for some people to understand, but is within the realm of, I guess, electronic music, slightly industrial, very limited, and as in scope. So that's what Aleodeology is. And I released 5 albums last year of material under that name last year, and we got more coming this year. All right, so on to the next track, and this is under the name Rushton, which is my beat-oriented sort of instrumental electronica that I crank out under that name. And I also crank it under Chill Out Preservation Collective, although that stuff is, I think, a little bit more retro, stuff that would sound good 15 years, but I don't know what's the difference between the two. So anyway, this track is called Fine Tuning the Groove. And it's just, again, I'm just going to play like about a minute of it or so. And here we go. Okay, that's fine tuning. 1 minute of fine tuning the groove by Rushton. It's a single that was released here about 12 days ago, and I think what I originally had there was I sort of had a good backing track that was maybe sort of Aleodeology ish, and threw a rhythm track on there, and I thought, well, this sounds good, and there you go, and so that's what that is. It doesn't have to be any more. I guess it falls under the line of sort of down tempo electronica, lo-fi beats, sort of ish. Although what Spotify calls lo-fi beats, I'm not. I'm a little. I don't know. I'm more into the groove, uh, retro drum machines, that sort of thing, rhythm loops, things like that. Anyway, let's move on from there. Let's not get hung up on anything. The next track is by My Love Underwater, and it's a track called Causing Mystery. And I'll play a little bit of this here. And I'm going to figure out how to do everything here. We're going to click on that. And here we go. Okay, that's about a minute of Causing Mystery by My Love Underwater. That's what I would call bubbly ambient. I sort of kind of name that. It's using a particular program and that I like to use to generate music, and then of course I run that through my processing devices to create that type of what I call bubbly ambient, and it's beautiful stuff. That's about a 3-minute track there. Next up, let's move on. Audio Historians, which is a name that I came up with a few months ago and only have recently started releasing sounds under. And in fact, there'll be an album of recordings by audio historians in the next couple of weeks here. 2 or 3 weeks, I think. And that one's called Downtown Cedar Rapids. I think it's out on Bandcamp right now, but we're not focusing on Bandcamp right now. We're focusing on this Spotify playlist. And so the first track that was released under Audio Historians is called Excavators Are Very Pleasant. And I made this field recording many years ago when the old neighborhood that I lived in was having some new development behind it. And so there was, excavators sounding very pleasant. So I went out there and recorded an excavator digging out a foundation hole for several minutes. And it's a very pleasing, you'll hear it here in just, I'll play just about a minute of it or whatever. But so Audio Historians, if I could get my cat to mind its own business here, she keeps jumping up on me. The thing about Audio Historians is that, and the philosophy behind it is that we don't really have a very good, accurate view of the history of the way that cities and everything sound. We have drawings. Historically, we have drawings of cities, and then at some point, photography came in, and then we had early black and white silent films, and then even just into the modern era, just seeing a picture of what your neighborhood or your downtown or the countryside looked like just even 50, 60 years ago. It's completely different from today with, HD, 4K, all that sort of stuff. But sound wise, like it's very difficult to have that old sound because, we were still using tape up until, the 90s, even in the early aughts. I mean, I got a mini disc recorder in the early aughts, and that was far from perfect. And then I got my first digital audio recorder, I think around 2006 or so. And since then, it's just been great. So, but we've sort of lost, I kind of feel like we have a lost era of sounds. And because we're in the here and now, in the present day, we don't think about, maybe archiving some of that sort of stuff and going out and recording it. I know people are doing that. I know you can get that on video these days, but a specific type of sound. And I don't use any particular fancy equipment or anything like that. But I just want to capture the sound of whatever it is, a truck driving around, birds roosting in the trees, industrial hum. What did the Quaker Oats plant sound like, right? What did it sound like with people driving around on Harleys downtown? I have examples of that. So that's coming up here. So let's move on. Let's get on here with this, and we're going to play a little bit of Excavators Are Very Pleasant. That's about a minute of Excavators Are Very Pleasant by Audio Historians. So that's the debut single. And it's a little bit under 5 minutes there. It's just an old thing that I had sitting around, and it doesn't do anything sitting on a hard drive, right? And it's a pretty sound. I kind of like the sound of it. You don't even you kind of get the visual of it, of the guy, scooping the dirt out, moving it over, and you get the sound of the hydraulics and the metal and the birds tweeting. And so when you're listening, when you're doing the recording of it, you don't necessarily hear everything. And when you listen to it back later on, you pick up so many more things that are in that you can hear. I don't know. I kind of find it fascinating. All right, on to the next thing. I released a new single, Mark Rushton, I released a new single called Future Dreams. This was a few weeks ago that I got this scheduled. And in the meantime, I've created a whole new album called Repair the Web of Time, which is out on Bandcamp now and will be released on the streamers May 19th. That is really, really good. But I like future, you schedule these things out here and you do what you can when you can. So I'm going to play a little bit of Future Dreams here. It's a shorter track. Well, let's just let's see if I can. Here we go. That is Future Dreams by Mark Rushton. Just released that, I guess, on 2 weeks ago. 2 weeks ago. So I think there's another single that's coming out very soon, and then Repair the Web of Time comes out May 19th. So just kind of cranking it out there. What else we got here? Let's move on to Vibrating Wires, a new single by Vibrating Wires called Railroad Insulator. Vibrating Wires is my desolate, lap steel, heavily processed sound. It's pretty stark, so we're not going to play too much of it here, but here is Railroad Insulator by Vibrating Wires. That's a little bit of Railroad Insulator by Vibrating Wires. So that particular track, what I was trying to get with there was it's supposed to sound like sort of like like the sound at a railroad crossing, and just kind of you're out in the middle of nowhere, maybe in the nighttime, and you just get that soundtrack going on, and a little creepy, perhaps. I don't know. Maybe that's what I'm shooting for there. Anyway, so let's see what else we got in here that I need to spotlight. Earth Days on Other Planets by Cloud Drift. Let's play a little bit of that. That is Earth Days on Other Planets by Cloud Drift. I guess that's space music, right? Space music. That came out about 3 weeks ago. And I've been putting that into the playlist that I curate. We're going to play one more track here. One more track. And it's going to be Country Club Plaza in Kansas City by Hot Mic, HOT space MIC. This is a name that I'm not going to use anymore. I used it a few years ago, and then I used it recently, but unfortunately, since then, a couple of other artists have started releasing things under the name Hot Mic. And while it's a great name, I don't want to be dealing with all the problems of my tracks ending up on the wrong artists' pages and stuff like that. I mean, I can go and get it corrected through the various streaming companies, but I don't, it's a pain, which is why I created Audio Historians. So I'll leave this stuff out there as Hot Mic or whatever, and it's just sort of a dotted line, vestigial, or however you want to describe it. So anyway, I guess it was about 6 years ago. We took a vacation down to Kansas City, and we were on the Country Club Plaza, and I went around with my audio recorded and just kind of walked around. And I don't think there's any edits on this one. I think this is like a pure walking around field recording. There may be an edit or two, but I don't think so. And so I'm going to play the whole thing, and that will be it as far as this podcast is concerned. Again, this was Ambient Rushton podcast number 178 for April 2021. I'm Mark Rushton. My website's markrushton.com. If you want to hear more about these tracks or tracks that I'm releasing, just follow the link in the description to the Spotify playlist. So right now, I'm going to play the whole of Country Club Plaza in Kansas City by Hot Mike. See you on the next one.
She was 35, I was like 20.